I want the world to know, why did you choose to become a teacher?
So I believe my purpose in life is to identify and develop young men and women's potential. It's been on my heart for many years. And my parents are in education. My mom is a counselor currently, and my dad is an assistant principal.
Okay.
Long lineage. My grandmother was in education, but you can say the cliche thing is like, oh, I joined it because my parents did, and that's definitely part of the reason. But also there's a personal goal for myself that I don't know if my previous family did, but that specifically, which it's different than the common thing of, well, I just want to teach kids and I just want to, I have a passion for teaching, which I do, but behind all of that is helping kids realize their potential in any way, shape, or form. It gives me my number one thing that I want to be able to have with students is to build positive, strong relationships, not just for that, particular time, but for, extended period of time, for however long, that relationship is needed.
Okay.
And I want to be able to say that, for 5, 10 years, 15 years down the line, that I made a longer lasting impact outside of the subject that I'm teaching them. I have the ability to teach math, and currently I am teaching a engineering style course.
Okay.
That we're doing project based. But no matter what I'm teaching, I feel like in anything that I teach, it has to centralize, catering to every individual in my classroom, and what their personal goals are and what their drive is, because that's really the only way I feel now to have them do some of the things that you want them to do, and what you wanted them to get out of it. If I can listen to what they need and what they need out of it. And I think that's really important for being a teacher today and connecting with the students and having them learn in my class. So
it's higher level, the purpose. You're helping students find the purpose, not just within the content, but beyond. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. Now, I know that you teach middle school, and I've been hearing and seeing a lot of social media being part of the social tools, so in terms of socializing, and even within the curriculum, we use a lot of technology. How do you see that technology integration as a society affecting our children?
One, I think they're being exposed to many things that they're not normally exposed to.
Okay.
And I also think that they want to make their digital identity more prevalent than their actual real world identity. And some children sees that digital identity in terms of like playing games and video games and stuff like that. Some of them do actually and there is social media embedded in video games because you get to play with your friends and all that other stuff. That's the social part of it. And then actually using social media apps, making short videos. A lot of the kids want to make short videos, and then they see some of their favorite, what we call now influencers. Now it's the new thing now, where we have people that are good at making content, and because of that, they gain a big following, and because of that, they're able to influence the people at large. And so now a lot of companies are investing in these types of people that have big gain followings, and including them, and then paying them to either promote certain things, right? And so social media is the new commercial, the new marketing, because a lot of content creators and influencers make, once they get these companies behind them, they intentionally make segments that is devoted to said company. So all the traditional commercials that we're seeing on TV, they're being done on the social media. So now, however, people want to get to the younger generation, they get into them through social media. And I feel like that is it, because it's so easily accessed. Like we can, back in the day, you could turn off the TV, like, hey, you had a certain TV time, and that was it. Now we have these, wonderful phones, and as good a tool as they are also a distractor, which is obviously a tough thing in the classroom. They are, as I said, an influencer to make them think that certain things are cooler or whatever, but don't really understand what they're looking at.
That must be so challenging, especially middle school age students, preteens. They're still learning who they are as their body's changing, hormones, and beginning to see the world through the lens of maturity as they step into young adulthood, that they are thinking, or not even without thinking, they are immersed in this learning process, this learning stage of who they are as a human being, as a person, as well as their identity that's online, on social media. They're worried about that too, on top of everything. Wow, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like it takes them away from the real world. It takes them away from, the energies that you have with a particular person when you're having conversations with them. And I found it challenging. One thing I do in my classrooms is called reflection time. I've called it different things, family time, whatever. But basically it's a period of time, when they walk into a classroom, I'll have some type of question up. It may be a good segment just to lead into the lesson for the day, or it might simply just be a check-in, or something current event that that might already be on their minds. But you have a question, you present it, and I have them stand in a circle. I have a speaking ball or whatever, or so that whoever's holding this ball, that's who's speaking, and pass it around, and they give their opinions. They're not supposed to opt out, so they're supposed to give an answer. Kids always want to say, "Oh no," and that so we want to kind of avoid that, and so and hopefully to foster conversation. I found it more difficult to do it more as some of the years have gone on. I think that is part of like the social media negative impact, is the ability for these children to sit and listen to another person next to them. I feel like it's difficult. They will prefer texting their friend right next to them than actually talking to them face to face, and it happens all the time because they're texted in a friend group, and so it's I feel like it's a problem because I've found myself taking some of that reflection time, family time away because it's just not effective in its current state, because it's just after a minute or whatever they're doing this, and it's a huge challenge because
do you see any students who are balancing it all, managing it all very well? What kind of program do you think would help integrate everything that is present for our students at this current time?
I think that, there's obviously still stuff going on, sports and different after school activities where they, I know at our school, we have like gardening, and we have, and then we have another group that's like building a turtle habitat.
Is that an extracurricular? Is it an elective?
It's an extracurricular.
Okay.
I think having my elective class as a period throughout the day, or my class, we do like projects and stuff, and I teach about the engineering design process, and like going through that, how do we work as a team, as a group, which is one of the central pieces of my class, is how to work as a group. But again, if we can't put this down, then it becomes a challenge. And then, then this only becomes a tool of amusement and not a tool of, hey, checking my calendar, checking. So I would say having like a program just teaching kids cell phone management, like just where they, here's the other things we can use this for. Back in the day it was like buying a planner.
Planner.
Now there's planners. We shouldn't use planners anymore. I don't. I mean, maybe it's cool to. I also a believer, write things down makes you remember it. But for me and for these kids, in terms of calendar, a planner, I have the Google Calendar on my phone that I religiously use to check and see what I have, having notifications and reminders.
And that's good. That's the tools that the technology helps us as a tool to help organize ourselves or remember things, or so you use it as a tool. So a program that'll help students learn how to use the technology as a tool to help them with their daily endeavors, not to be just so entertained or distracted or this identity that they may be creating, but as a tool.
And I like when you say identity, because I feel like, and I've heard all the time in my career where like parents will take away their phones and then they'll get depressed, like seriously depressed. And it's like, whoa, like it's not that serious, but for them it is. For them, it because they're so attached to it, it can become, can gain those types of emotions. But I think having any kind of program, like we have an archery program at our school, like anything that will get them to put their phone down for a little while, I think would be helpful. Like just learning how to like put it aside. If they gain interest into things that doesn't require it, I think they'll naturally teach, like, hey, I need to, put it down. But also having a program where it's like, okay, all right, we're in class now, let's put it on silent, like, I don't know how we can actually teach those
like
things.
Like an etiquette, right? When to use something, when to put it away, when to focus on something, when to integrate it, that balance. Teaching them that balance, modeling that balance.
And I don't think it's pushed forward enough. I feel like I've seen a school where they had this like stoplight system where it's like, oh, if it's on red, then you can't have it out. If it's on yellow, we're using it for, this, for.
Interesting.
So, and then green if it's just like wide open. But we need some type of, overarching, like, implemented in all levels of schooling, where it's like, hey, here's like a cell phone etiquette type of thing, because they just don't know how to, manage it right now. And I think it's important to talk to parents about that too, because I mean, now parents can communicate with their kid at any given moment, and understandable, you gotta get connected with your child. I'm not against that. But also I've had many a times, which I don't personally have a problem with. I give him that liberty. But like, hey, my mom, I need to call my dad for something, or blah, 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 which no problem. Zero problem. But it's also lumped into, when do we put it down? When do we,
also educating the parents too. It's like, hey, it's class time right now. It's school time right now. So, Mr. Bennett, you have taught before the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic shutdown happened, at a middle school. We actually taught together, and I was teaching pre-algebra then, and I think you two were teaching algebra.
I think I was doing a algebra class, but I was also doing math 7.
Yeah, we were neighboring math teachers at the time. This was pre-COVID, and then COVID happened and the school shut down. I remember I was preparing for Pi Day, March 14th, celebration of pie. We're gonna eat pie and celebrate Pi Day, and that Friday didn't happen because of the pandemic, the shutdown, and straight into online distance learning, and we did that for almost a semester and another semester.
It was a semester.
year.
It was a semester, and then it was one full year.
That's right.
No, was it a semester? And then we started this semester.
And then we went back in person, I believe.
Right after that.
After that.
Right.
So during that time, and now we are well into 2024. We're three years past that.
Well, COVID-19.
19.
So was it?
Yeah, about 3 years.
Was it 3 years?
3
Okay.
years. And now it's back to normal. I guess it's the new norm, but I would like for you to kind of share with us, what have you noticed in terms of the students' socio-emotional development, their socio-emotional well-being before the pandemic, as well as during, and as well as after? How are they now? How are we doing? How are we doing now?
I think there was definitely not a highlight of social emotional. I feel like kids were in a good state. I felt like there was a lot more focus in school. Academic focus in
Definitely.
school. I feel that they just had kind of overall more responsibility, I believe, for themselves, more accountability for themselves during that time. And then COVID hit, and I think that this might be a touchy subject, but I think when the pandemic hit, parents were at a loss because they send their children to the schools, and this is who watches after them during that particular time. And now they didn't have that support. And so now they had kids at home. One, a lot of it, safety wise, not a lot of supervision because they're out working, right?
That's right.
And so, and that's probably a separate topic. But because of that lack of accountability with them being at home during the pandemic, there just became an apathy towards their education. And so, because now if you have the ability to put yourself as a 11, 12, 13 year old, and you're at home and you could just turn off your camera,
click,
and
right?
then then play video games on the side. I mean, you're still there, right?
Yeah, you're still here. I'm still in class, but you're not really there. Yeah.
So I mean, imagine for an elementary student whose focus is not all the way there yet during their formative years, and then middle school, definitely some formative years, and then going back to this, well, I can just text my friends the whole time. Or
I remember it was so hard for me to have my 32 students have their cameras on, looking at me. My laptop screen, you're looking in, say, hey, is everybody there? Turn on your camera so I can see your beautiful faces. And maybe one or two will turn on their camera. And it was so hard to know if they were paying attention to you and if they were engaged. But during that time, you seemed to do well, though. You found a way to keep your students excited. They were excited to come to your class, your online class, to learn math. And how did you do that? A lot of us kind of look to you, like, how are you doing this, Mr. Bennett? How are you keeping the kids engaged and be present and participate during that time? What did you do?
So I believe, again, in my philosophy is building relationships. It's just not to teach the content, which obviously is my job to do, and that's definitely a top priority. But it's about building those relationships and making positive relationships where they understand that you care about them personally. And I think that's what I was able to do.
And that came through the screens.
Right.
Through the screens.
Back then I called it, attendance check or something, attendance question or whatever. I called it something like that. It was some wording for it, but in order for us to do attendance, you had to, put your camera on, and,
Okay.
I similar to the family time and to the reflection time. Before I even knew what that was, interesting enough, I got taught that by a colleague of mine once we came back.
I see.
But even before then, I was like, hey, here's an attendance question of the day.
Okay.
And they would answer the question and stuff like that, and just making sure they felt that my class was a place of them being safe. One thing I wanted to bring up while you were talking about putting the cameras on, a lot of students were embarrassed of the home conditions. And so, obviously they don't want to put their camera on, or they don't necessarily want to talk because there might be a lot of chaos going on. Maybe they have siblings at home. And so there's a layered thing than just little Johnny wants to play video games, right? So it's a layered conversation during that time. But when you provide a place where people feel welcome, obviously there was a lot of loneliness too. They weren't able to socialize, right? They weren't able to find people that they were able to connect with. So they might have felt alone. And I've had testimonies from different students that, it was a difficult time for them, but coming to my class was just a positive. Just being able to come, being inviting, if you create a community, a learning community that's inviting and personalized and loving towards them, no matter where they come from, and respect for each other in the room, then they're going to want to come. They're going to want to turn the cameras on. They're going to want to engage. They're going to laugh and enjoy. And it maybe, and we have crazy conversations and have fun. But if I can get them to learn 20 minutes, 30 minutes of math, even though it was like maybe a 50, 60 hour period, then I've still taught them something.
Definitely.
If I take half of that time to interact with them, see how they're doing, hey, you're having a bad day, or hey, I didn't see you I emailed kids during that time, hey, I didn't see you today. We missed you. Where were you at? Why weren't you here? When you foster that kind of commitment to just having them care, then, and they're not just a statistic or they're not just a grade, then you really get that buy-in from them. They want you to know that you care, and a lot of times it's not going to manifest during your period of time during your class. I'm starting to realize that that's one thing that I'm starting to learn and come at peace with, that the things that some of these kids are dealing with at home, that they're just distracted, and sometimes their real battle is at home. When they need to focus is at home, and when they come here, they just want to relax. They want to just be with their friends. They're able to be them. And it's interesting, but that's where my success came from.
I think that is so important. You made connecting with them, relationship to be the priority, especially during COVID, especially during the distance learning when students weren't able to really interact with one another. You made that your priority. To say that I see you, I hear you, I want you here, you're welcome here. That's speaking to their soul, the spirit. Holistically, that the body, physically, they can't be there, but they can turn on the camera. The mind to engage with the content may come a little later, but you engage their heart, their feeling, their spirit, and their soul. You capture that in
their
the
purpose.
beginning. The purpose.
Why are they there?
Why?
And that's really, and to interject, that's why my purpose is to identify and develop the purpose. Because if they can find a reason to be in school, instead of just being forced there, I think we're going to get more engagement and more love into what they want to do. And I try to always speak to them behind the content. Okay, so I give the content, whether it's a math homework or math problem, like, okay, so yes, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it is not going to matter what you learned in what grade you got in Mr. Bennett's class. Let's say that. But the hope is what you learned, right? How to work with individuals in a group. What happens when one individual's not doing their job? How do you maneuver through that? How do you learn from that? Your work ethic, like when something's difficult, can you push through that? Your communication skills, being able to.
Those are all the attributes of social emotional learning.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that is what I want my students to get out of my class. If you end up being interested, or you love math a lot, or being interested in engineering, great. Happy for you.
And whenever I have an opportunity to talk to our youth, I ask them, "Hey, what's your favorite subject in school?" And they'll be like, "Math or English or science." And I ask them why, and 9 times out of 10, they say it's because they like their teacher.
Oh, that's almost one. You can always say 99.9%.
It's not, I love the content. I love science, therefore I like science class. No, I like science because I like my teacher. I love my science teacher. Or I was speaking to a high school student the other day, and she said, "Oh, I love economics." And I was like, "Oh, economics? You love economics?" "Yeah, because I love that teacher." And I'm like, wow.
It doesn't matter the subject. It really does not matter the subject. Yeah. I've heard students all the time say, "Well, Mr. Bennett, I like you, but I don't like the content."
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of students that, don't do a lot of, work for me, but, they're there, they're happy.
They're happy.
And it's a conflict. I would say it's a conflict because, I take their grades seriously. I want them to succeed when I see them failing. It's not like, oh, whatever, Johnny's not doing what he's supposed to do. It's like, what do I need to do to get him to do a modicum of work, right? Because in our school systems, every kid has the ability to get a C. C average, every kid has that ability.
Okay.
In any way, shape, or form, I believe. Okay. As long as they put in the effort consistently. Okay. And that's the issue, right? Putting in the effort in consistently. And so, and that's why building those relationships is so important, because if they like you, they will more likely do the work.
And this is where teaching is truly a profession of multiple art. It's not just the relationship building, it's not just the content knowledge, it's the integration of so many different layers of personalities and attributes that you have to pull in to reach to that child. And then for the child to find the inspiration or the motivation to exceed in the content, which we sign up for as a teacher. Okay, we're going to teach this content. So teachers need that. They need the support, the nurturing of the purpose-driven education themselves. Do you feel like that is being met?
You said purpose.
For teachers themselves to find the drive, the motivation.
Yes, I think.
To bring in the relationship, the content, when to push, when to surrender, when to check in, when to push the work and the responsibility, just the juggling act of being a teacher. Do you feel these skills and attributes are well supported?
Obviously the academic teaching part of it, definitely. And I will say there's stuff out there, within where I work at, like the social emotional part of it, that post-COVID, that there's some things out there for even teachers and how they're coping. But I really think, we have to, and this kind of goes with your holistic, education, and I kind of want to bring up AUM at this point in time, because I feel like we need a more whole-rounded way of teaching them, because in my profession right now, it really is about the results of their grades and their test scores and things of that nature, which are important, but it's not the only thing. And I think that we need something that can holistically grow our individual kids, because when we holistically help them, with how to manage their emotions, how to build a great work ethic, and as teachers we need to reflect that, we need to model that. Are we actually modeling that to them? What are we modeling to them? I think, to answer your previous question, we need more training on how, the assignments that we give, keeping it fresh, right? I'm not the hugest fan of just giving the worksheet, but sometimes as a teacher you just fall into that, right? What are some ways that we can take the content that we're teaching and give it to them in a real life scenario, and having them and not only that, but using how can we involve every discipline,
interdisciplinary projects and assignments,
right? And so that they can see the connection,
the interconnectedness of everything that we were teaching,
right? And so
I agree. When I was in the classroom, I felt like an island a lot of the times, and even though we have time set aside for teacher collaboration, those times weren't really used to really get into the collaboration and sharing of creative ways to deliver something. It was more paperwork. There was a lot of paperwork, things that we needed to check off our lists, and people need time to grade papers and do this and do that. So oftentimes those designated times were rushed, or we just kind of hit the surface, if you will. We never really got in depth with how to creatively teach multiplying fractions, for example. And we never get to share that experience. So therefore, I felt very much alone navigating, okay, how can I do this better next time to reach further or deeper or wider. So nurturing that creativity, tapping into the teacher's heart, the purpose why they became a teacher, the purpose you became a teacher, and giving them the opportunity, holistic opportunity to model. You said that, to model and demonstrate to our students that we too are benefiting and thriving with this way of learning, because we as teachers are learners. And
learning with them, right?
With them, so they can see, oh, teachers collaborate, they talk to one another and plan our lessons together. Oh, that's cool. They see a little bit of science and math and art and music and physical education and philosophy in this particular service learning project, and they see it. They see the attributes of all of our work put together, for example. And that becomes very important, because that's us modeling to them. Look what we can do when we bring our gifts and talents and our passions together. So I think opportunities like that are necessary, and more so with our generation, our younger generation, and Academy of Universal Metaphysics, AUM. That's kind of one of our major framework, that community service collaboration piece. And that brings in a lot of the socio-emotional learning and development, because without it, we can't collaborate if we don't have those skills, the communication skills, the reflective skills, the listening skills.
Critical thinking,
problem solving, So
I think that's what AUM kind of brings to the table, and why me being, a public school teacher, that to want to see, from kindergarten all the way up to when they get older, the underlying skills that it's hard to teach when you just run into a child, you get a child every year, right? You don't know where they're coming from. I often ask different teachers. I do my own research on the kid all the time. I'll ask a teacher, how can I reach this kid? Because every kid is individual, and so you have to find how do you reach them? For some kids, contacting parents work. For some kids, it actually doesn't, or it's been tried and it's not necessarily effective. And so, what is the best way to get this kid to do, what you need them to do to be successful?
As a mother of twins, 2 boys, they're so different. And listening to you say what you just said reminds me of the way I nurture and discipline my sons, because they're twins, same household, same parents, basically similar routines, and our values and all of that is the same, yet they're so different. So when you communicate or when you enforce something, our approach to one is definitely different than the other one. What works for one doesn't mean it's going to work for the other.
And we understand this already.
Yeah.
But yet we don't. We have these, as teachers, we have these classroom management. And I'll be honest, I'm quote unquote terrible at classroom management because I'm not necessarily. I mean, I care about the whole, but I care about the whole by caring about the individuals within the whole. And sometimes when I'm dealing with that individual and giving them that individual attention, then it becomes harder to govern the whole group.
But there's a within that chaos, there's a certain organization, because your intention,
right,
is directed. It's not like you're in the room saying, "Oh, it's just crazy in here." You are very intentional about what you're doing.
Right.
And I've been there. And sometimes that's okay, because that in itself, the students have an opportunity to look in and they see you connecting with that one student that needs you at that moment. Because maybe next day it could be that student that's going to need that kind of attention from you, and they're comforted by that because they see you doing that to another, and they say, wow, he's there for that student. One day he's going to be there for me. So, when you have room full, I mean, how many students do you have in your classroom?
On average, about 35, 36.
35. That's pretty large. That's a lot of souls to connect and to build that relationship and nurture on a daily. That's a lot. That is a lot. And most teachers are out there just doing their very best. And sometimes it looks very chaotic. It may sound chaotic, but when that purpose is there, when that respect is there, when that love is there, and you're keeping them safe and in a welcoming environment, that's you already have a huge advantage towards them really learning from you beyond the content. And when I study innovators and change makers and people who are making some amazing innovation in our society, a lot of them go back to their childhood and speak about the time that they went fishing with their grandparents, or they would go collect something in the forest, or they would help their grandma lay out the gardens, or they're in nature, or they're discovering something on their own or together with a family member or a community member. I don't want to say it's never, I learned it in a classroom. I won't say that, but it's the other opportunities, other experiences they have that inspire that creativity. They go back to that moment, what they have learned from that experience, and they integrate it. They transform it, and they look at what's going on today, and
it shapes them. It shapes their decision making, and that's what the conversations that I'm having with them, that the essential things, the things behind just the assignments that I'm giving, hearing what they want to be and what they want to do. Okay, well, you want to own your own business. Okay, so if you're going to own your own business, then then you need to make certain decisions, right? So this engineering design process, how are you going to design, your corporate office, or or your office personally, or how are you going to make certain decisions for your business unbiasedly with the group of people that are in business with you. So there's different ways I can connect some of the things I'm teaching you that you can take and apply it to yourself, but you won't be able to apply it if you don't put forth the effort to try to see the different applications. And so and that's important with the interdisciplinary work, collaboration, how to connect the things that they're interested in to the things that you're teaching them, even though that particular subject is not what they're interested in. It's making those connections in their mind of like, okay,
hey, I can go talk to so-and-so about this, or I can find more information about that.
Or what we're learning is something that I could use for somewhere else. That's one thing.
Exactly.
That's one thing I think our students are lacking a lot. It's like it's even more segmented than I think in the past, and mentally, where it's like, oh, this is just math class, and so we do math.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
but segmented, fragmented.
Right. There's just the connectedness of each of the subjects that they're learning. They don't really realize a lot.
Yeah.
The perseverance, I think that's huge right now. Perseverance. This is also still, I've been bringing this up a lot. When perseverance suffers, when it's like, okay, man, this is so hard. This is so far. Well, there's a game on my phone I'd rather play.
Yeah.
Right.
It becomes quick escape. Yeah.
Right. Not to say that issue was not apparent in the past, but I feel like the pull is stronger from this distractor compared to when you didn't have that, where now you're just drawing, little drawings. Eventually that becomes boring, so then you'd be like, oh, let me at least try this. And then you're almost forced to at a certain point back in the day where it's just like, oh, well, crap, I might as well try this.
Might as well. Nothing else going on. Now, I understand that you have your own flag football team. And I want to know what inspired you to do that. On top of so many things that's already going on in your life, you had the inspiration to be a coach for a flag football team. What happened? How did that came to be?
Well, I started with when I first came to the school that I'm at currently to become the boys and girls flag football team for that school.
Okay.
I have another coach with me that doing both would be a lot.
Okay.
But I have a coach helping me, and I've done it for 2 years now, and my first year kind of hooked me because I had two really amazing teams. Both of my teams made to the semifinals in the city, and we both lost, unfortunately. And then so that kind of hooked me. And then the second year was like not as good, so I was like, man, I want to do better.
Okay.
And so after this past year where we didn't do so hot, I actually went to the local high school. They're now offering flag football for the girls, obviously regular football for the boys. So I joined the staff for the high school flag football team in the area. And so I learned a lot from that experience. The girls that I had at my middle school went to the high school level and crushed it. Both girls were like all city, players. So I just, that kind of, those particular young ladies, they kind of hooked me a little bit.
Okay.
So
was that they were talented in their athleticism, right?
They were just talented at the game. I can see, so it's multifaceted. One, I feel like there are girls out there that can definitely play football, and they don't really have the opportunity to, obviously, because football is mainly. There's been a few girls that's poked out.
Male-dominant sport.
Right. There's been a few girls that just to throw that out there that have played the actual football sport, but I feel like the opportunity for girls right now is in flag football. I'm gonna go into more of the global, thing. So first off, flag football in 2026, I believe, is the next Olympics. Will be an Olympic sport.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
So
that'll inspire so many girls to get out there and try the sport.
And then NFL, which is our pro football. here in America, they're pushing a lot of NFL flag. And then from what I've heard, one of the seniors from the high school I was working at, she got a scholarship to now they're only doing it at smaller schools, I believe NAIA, but I believe there's a future. Right now, what I'm seeing right now in flag football, I think there's a future where a lot of colleges are going to start offering it. I feel like there's already been a huge push for high school. So a lot of states have high school flag football for girls right as we speak. And so it's an uprising sport, and I feel like there's a growth to it that if I jump into the ring and put myself in the wave of learning and in the development and the elevation of the sport, this is a good time to kind of ride the wave, if you so say.
Okay.
And so when I started that flag football team, my dream right now is, here in the city, I want to build a dynasty with my middle school and the local high school, which the majority of my kids go to. And so if I can develop my girls in the middle school realm, then when they get to high school, they have more experience, more skill set, so that our program in the high school level can grow. Because I'm the freshman level coach over there, and so that direct link, because a lot of the girls I'm working with right now, we have a tournament nearby. A lot of them are 8th graders, and although they won't play for my team personally, for the middle school, they might play for my team in the high school, becoming freshmen the next year. So there's a connectedness where I want to be in the process of developing them to become, by the time they're seniors,
watch them grow and coach them and watch them grow, and there's that follow through
right
all the way through.
Because I believe there's a future in flag football. The evidence is there. It's there where I believe, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, maybe I believe for sure there's going to be more schools offering the D1 schools.
I see.
And
sports is such an important outlet for so many students. The body, right, the physical, to channel their energy, their creativity, their talents through sports. And flag football has been, like we said, has been very male dominant, but now it's welcoming the female, so they too have the opportunity to thrive at that sport. Right. So that's a wonderful movement.
Right, and obviously, like I discussed before, what type of programs will help our kids to see. Obviously, sports is still one of the most one of the best ways to model the underlying traits and characteristics that they need to be successful in whatever they do. I make them do this certain thing where they have to hit the ground and get back up. It can be looked at as a punishment, which I sometimes use it as, but
the discipline.
But what I always tell them is, when you get knocked down, you get back up. That's despite all the physical things and stuff like that, it's the mental that I want them to get. When you get knocked down, you get back up. And so these are little things that I can put in there that it becomes so large beyond flag football. Yeah. Again, the theme of being a teacher, I believe that being a very good teacher is teaching them things beyond the subject that you teach. And I told you how I did that in the classroom, telling you how I'm doing that as a coach.
Yeah.
And what I hope we can encompass all of that with AUM when it finally comes out, the more holistic education.
Yes, and integrating the metaphysics and putting that visualization and some of the energetic techniques, awareness. An athlete can embody, or student or performer, the music, the arts. There's so many different creative ways the students can express themselves and create purpose. The reason why they're here, to make this world a better place. So thank you, Paul, for being here. Thank you for being such an amazing, inspirational educator for youth of our community. Just keep doing what you're doing, and I hope that you've enjoyed our conversation as much as I did. So,
you know, I'll always highlight this. Sheburra has been one of the mentors for me, and my educational journey, and just personally. And so, I'm honored to be here to have this conversation with you, and I look forward to, you know, for both of us to continue to help young men and women do their thing. And so I'm just happy to be here. It was an excellent conversation.
Thank you. Well, cheers to all of that. Cheers. Thank you. You all have a wonderful day. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to our channel.
Please.
More wonderful people, more wonderful conversation will be coming your way. So thank you. Have a blessed day.
Have a good day.